Hi, this is Dean Butler. You're listening to TV Confidential.
Ed Robertson author guest Steve Aldous and Gary Gillies. Steve and Gary are joining us via Zoom. They are the co-authors of the Harry O viewing companion, history and episodes of the classic TV series. Everything you want to know about the making and the development of Harry O, the classic TV series starring David Jansen, Henry Darrow, and Anthony Zuri. The Harry O viewing companion available wherever books are sold through McFarland Books, McFarlandBooks.com, as well as Amazon.com. Before we went to break, Steve and Gary and I were about to dive into the various reasons why Harry O was canceled after only 2 seasons. Despite performing reasonably well in the ratings at the time, it was canceled, and as you're about to see, there's a lot of speculation on why the series was canceled, but one of the main points of your final chapter, where you talk about the demise of the series, it begins and ends with Fred Silverman, who was the head of ABC at the time.
Yeah, he was very much into populist TV. It was very much light entertainment, comedies, game shows, and more light drama, which is why. You could argue, I suppose, the point that a lot of the TV landscape at the time had become saturated with TV detectives. There were so many of them about, and you could argue it was almost like burnt out as a genre to a degree by the mid-70s. But he definitely had an influence. He came in with a great reputation from CBS in terms of getting about 7 or 8 shows out in the top 10, and ABC didn't, but there were 1 or 2 or whatever within the top 10, and he was very much brought in to sort of change that around, and he did it in his first year, I think. But he definitely wanted to change the landscape of what ABC's output was, and Harry O didn't really fit with what his vision was.
Well, it's one of the facts of life in not only television, but in almost any corporate business. When you have new management, you're sort of at the mercy of the likes or dislikes or personal whims of the new management. Gary is nodding appreciatively. Steve is nodding appreciatively. And you have a story that's been told by several people. You quote Harvey Frand, who was part of the production team at the time. Wow. Lee Goldberg told me a similar version, that part of the reason why Silverman canceled Harry O was because of a personal grudge he had with David Jansen.
Yeah, he didn't want to do a second series of O'Hara. I think David had got disillusioned with the character, with his character in that series, because it was so driven by just the plot. There was no characterization in it, and he felt that he couldn't really offer anything further to the part, so he didn't want to do a second series. He got a bit cheesed off with some of the scripts and the interference of the Treasury agency themselves, who were vetting everything. So he just said, no, I don't want to do it, and I think that piqued Silverman, I think, and he probably kept that as we could say it was a grudge or whatever, I don't know, but it didn't enamor him to David, I don't think.
Yeah, it would have been interesting had the series been given a chance to go a third year. And yet, at the same time, because I'm going to say that they only did 2 seasons. And I say only because today, if you do 44 episodes of a show, that's considered a long run.
Wow, yeah.
Whereas back then, a show that only aired 2 seasons was considered a failure. But even though its run was limited, I think because it was ended before its time, I think that's part of the allure of Harry O 50 years later. What do you guys think?
I think you're right, Ed. I think a lot of because this is episodic TV. I mean, every week was a different story. So to try and find something that stood out in a landscape where there's a lot of detective series providing similar plots and stuff was quite difficult. I mean, obviously today a lot of stuff is done over a whole season, isn't it? A story's developed over a whole season. We very rarely get an episodic crime series like we used to get back then. You could argue that's gone too far the other way now. I don't know, but I think it was increasingly difficult to in a crowded marketplace to stand out. I think, and Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, it would have been great if it could have gone to a third series. Interesting to see where they would have taken it if they'd have had the freedom to move in the direction they wanted to move, or whether the studios would say no, we want to stay with this formula. I think that would have created a bit of creative tension. I think because I know David and Anthony had ideas about what they wanted to input into the show for a third season.
So did Les. Remember they were talking
yeah.
about with Les and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, I think that's third season. Well, in my own mind, there was a third season. I think Harry fixed up his boat, the answer, and I think he's traveling the world as we speak. That's my third season.
Drifted off into the sunset, yeah.
The Harry O Viewing Companion, history and episodes of the classic detective series starring David Jansen, Henry Darrow, and Anthony Zerbe by our guests Steve Aldous and Gary Gillies. The Harry O Viewing Companion, available wherever books are sold through our friends at McFarland Books, McFarlandBooks.com, as well as Amazon.com. Stay with us, folks. We'll be right back.
This portion of TV Confidential is brought to us by our friends at Front Porch Realty, the community of realtors in the Northern Bay area of California that is committed to finding the solution that is best for their clients. Whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to sell or lease your property in Northern California, call Karen Strain at 415-886-7411 or visit frontporchrealtygroup.com for more information on how they can help you.
One more item. If you're starting a company, particularly one that is in an emerging market, you know that averting any sort of legal dispute is crucial to your business plan. Our friends at Tectonic Law offer an array of services that can help you avoid and preempt future litigation while also developing and protecting your intellectual property and intangible assets. Tectonic Law serves the needs of a host of emerging industries throughout California and beyond, including industrial designers, beverage makers, artists, farmers, retail stores, health practitioners, wellness experts, cosmetics manufacturers, nonprofit organizations, innovators in sustainable practices, and libraries. Go to tectoniclaw.com to learn more about how Tectonic Law can help your business thrive. tectoniclaw.com. Rock solid representation for groundbreaking industries.
Hi, this is Ann Archer, and you're listening to TV Confidential.
Who is it?
Harry Orwell. I'm a friend of Andy Marsh's.
Is it about the campaign? Bill's already gone down.
It's about Ralph Leach.
Sorry.
We can't make the connection.
Is this some kind of political dirty trick? Is that it?
Now, what it is murder. You're a little shaky.
I'd appreciate your leaving, Mr. Orwell. Double talk threats just don't make it.
You're a user. Leach was your contact. I got a witness, a time and a place. You and Leach together. Leach is alone, then he's dead. Am I making it now?
Any final thoughts about Harry O or David Jansen or Anthony Zerbe or anything else about the series that I haven't asked you about that you'd like to talk about?
Steve, over to you.
Yes. I think it's just, to me, Ed, I suppose it's the sum up really, that I think Harry O, the main thing for me is the quality of the writing and the quality of the direction. I think one thing we haven't touched on is Jerry Thorpe's contribution, I suppose, to the series, because he was the producer and he directed quite a lot of the episodes as well. And Richard
Lang.
Richard Lang, yes. I think he directed.
I just missed talking to him, and I was.
Did you?
No, I wrote my piece on the show originally in the spring of '97.
Yeah.
I remember I had to deliver it around the 1st of June, and Zerbe was the last person I talked to. He called me I'll never forget this. He called me at 11:45 on a Thursday night. And I happened to be up, and because he's a night person, and I ended up having to re-edit and rewrite my piece in order to incorporate his input. And he asked, had I talked to some of the other people, and I told him that I had reached out to Richard Lang. I was hoping to get his input in the show, because Richard Lang ended up being the show's regular director. I know he directed half the episodes of the second season in particular. And I believe it was Zerby who told me during that midnight phone call that night that you just missed Richard. He died a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And I said, wow.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because he was quite a talented director. I mean, he was, if you like, Jerry Thorpe's protege in a way, because he took on, Jerry had this forced perspective filming style, as you're probably aware, from which he sort of took on from influences from Sidney Furie and the Ipcress File, where you focus on something in the foreground and it brings the background and you get a depth of vision and it creates a more interesting viewing experience, you know. And he was very keen to get that sort of style into the series, and Richard Lang took that on, I think, with a lot of the shows he directed. And he had a very good relationship with the actors as well, which helped to create their atmospheres and stuff on set. So I think their input was another key part of the show's success. Howard Rodman sort of went away from it in the second series because he was sort of lost interest after a while, because obviously they moved quite a bit away from his concept. He'd been involved in obviously the pilots and the early episodes, and he stopped on as a story consultant through the first series, and then sort of stepped aside as it went into the second series and went more of that formulaic route. Well, I think the key for me is that David Janssen obviously is the soul of the show. Jerry Thorpe in terms of getting the style, and Howard Rodman from the point of view of the whole let's do something different to the standard detective series. And I think those three coming together to create something that was unique in the way of the landscape at the time, I think, really.
Yeah, I think it was just all, you get things in life where people come together and it just works and it's just meant. You get the Beatles, they all come together and it just works. I think, with Jerry Thorpe, I look upon Jerry Thorpe as, I just wish there was more Jerry Thorpes nowadays that would take a chance and mould a series. He was a genius at it. I look at Patrick McGowan as similar sort of coming up with ideas and doing, something a wee bit different, whereas nowadays it's just all formula, and it's a shame. But yeah, I agree with you, Steve. I think it's David Janssen, definitely Jerry Thorpe. Howard Rodman, yep. I just loved the scripts, everything just worked for me, the series. And as I said before, it had soul. It's something that some series have not got anymore. But yeah, still a big Harry O fan, and I love the book.
If you are enjoying Harry O on DVD, if you're enjoying Harry O Sunday nights on TV Land, you definitely want a copy of the Harry O Viewing Companion by Steve Aldous and Gary Gillies, available wherever books are sold, McFarlandBooks.com, McFarlandBooks.com, as well as Amazon.com. Steve Aldous, Gary Gillies, thank you so much for joining us. Continued success with your book.
Thanks very much, Ed. Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you.
Now you can fly anywhere in the world and pay discount prices on your airline tickets. Book a flight today to London, Paris, Madrid, or anywhere else you want to go, and pay a lot less guaranteed. Call the International Travel Department right now at Low Cost Airlines.
800-222-0511. 800-222-0511. Again, that's 800-222-0511.